So I've got a question for you. Have you ever wondered why you feel separate? Like a person navigating a strange world in a subject-object reality, feeling stuck in your repetitive and looping patterns of negative beliefs and unwanted situations that continually seem to cycle over and over again. And even if on the surface it looks like different people, different places, and different situations, the underlying theme of that pattern seems to keep cycling through your life experience and you can't seem to break free of it. If you've been guided to click on and watch this video right now, chances are that you're tired of playing the same old role over and over again. And if you're anything like I was, there's almost this feeling that the role and the character you've been playing up until now has almost reached somewhat of a dead end, like things just cannot keep going in the same way that it's always been any longer. It's almost like the desires and wishes of the ego are not only not being satisfied, but they're even no longer being entertained by the universe. Things just aren't happening when they come from the level of the ego. Everything you do from the perspective of the separate self seems to fail, like you're up against an invisible brick wall that you cannot seem to break through. And that's not through lack of trying. It doesn't matter how many books you read, courses you take, and how many videos on law of attraction you go through. Nothing seems to budge when it's coming from the perspective or the lens of the separate self. So if you're experiencing anything even close to this right now, that's actually a telltale sign and major clue that you're now being prepared for something much, much higher. You're now being prepared for a full awakening. So I want to backtrack a few years to tell you a little bit about my story and how that exact situation and those exact experiences that I faced acted as a catalyst for me to turn inward and actually start progressing in the right direction so that the illusion of separation could finally start unraveling, because it was time for me to stop playing the role of the separate self and begin the journey of realigning back to the truth of the soul. So once upon a time, I probably would have been known, if you asked any of my friends and family, as the driven one, or at least that's a common adjective that they would use to describe me, because I was so almost obsessed with the idea of creating the business I wanted, the life I wanted. And so I would go out and buy the books, go to seminars, I would buy courses. I basically never ever stopped continually reinvesting everything into the building and development of business and personal development in that sense, and for the purpose of creating that life that I wanted. And on the surface, there were multiple projects that when I launched them, they initially gained traction and a lot of initial success. But there was always something missing in these endeavors that I was going into. And more than that is that when I would reach a certain point where it looked like it was going to potentially be a home run, the home run that I was always looking for, something would happen to almost completely wipe out the progress I'd made. Maybe it was self-sabotage in some cases, which it probably was in some cases, but there were other cases that things completely out of my control would seem to come along and just almost cause a complete halt to all the progress I'd made. And how it felt at the time was that when I went to reapply myself, even in that same endeavor, it would just feel like there was this almost invisible wall right in front of me that I just couldn't push through. And as I look back now, it's almost like the universe was just placing that wall in front of me because it was saying, you've gotten everything you need to out of this project. It's time to look into something else. And that was really, really hard to let go of, because what looks like success initially, I would quickly become very attached to that project and want to see it through to become what I had envisioned. And I knew, because if I could create that project to become the home run success that I was looking for, then I would be able to create the life I wanted, and then I would finally feel like I had reached a certain place in life where I could finally feel free, because the drive for freedom was my overarching core theme where I felt completely trapped and stuck in life unless I had a massive success and was completely financially free. And so the lens through which I was building from, the lens through which I was conducting all of my thinking, all of my actions, was from the lens of the separate self. And more than that, the lens of scarcity, because I was constantly feeling I was trapped by scarcity, needing to break out and break through that. And ultimately, that is not the best perspective or the best lens through which to see your creative endeavors, because it's not truly coming through the correct frequency and the undistorted frequency of your soul. And it's my belief that as we're moving into the higher and higher timelines, as everything's shifting, and if you're watching this video, you're probably well aware of the shift that is currently taking place. It's my belief that the true power in our creation and the true power that we're going to have moving forward is to really create from that place of our soul's core frequency and the undistorted expression of the perspective of our soul. And so all through this time where things on the surface, anything I tried to create through the lens of their ego seemed to fall by the wayside in some way, shape or form, what was happening is that it was creating an intense catalyst, an intense pressure for me to begin looking inwards and start seeking the truth of who I am. And so that path that I found myself on, seemingly of releasing attachments and alchemy, transmutation of distorted beliefs and frequencies, was what I found was starting to bring me the relief that I was actually seeking from external endeavors. And I realized that everything I wanted to achieve, the feeling I wanted to achieve, could all be done internally. And secondarily to that, what I realized is that even though it was very difficult for me to stay in this realization, I often kept oscillating in and out of the realization. But what I did realize is that when I reached the certain base where my vibrational field, my energy field reached a certain level, then what I was looking for in the external would actually paradoxically reflect outwards, because as I've discussed before in previous videos, the physical reality is nothing more than a reflection of your complete energy signature. So it's like an inverse formula. You cultivate the inside so that it can reflect on the outside. And so that's really the core of what I want to share today is alchemy, the practice of transmuting those distorted beliefs based in duality and fear, based in the separate self, based in separation, transmuting all of that into the core of who you are, which is the soul, which is the non-dual self. And so if you're not clearly in the perspective of being your non-dual awareness right now, chances are is because there's so many beliefs and so much energy in your field that's based in separation that it's just too hard to see the truth. And I've used the analogy before of the cloud cover covering the sun. At a certain point, if there's so much cloud cover that you can't see the sun, then the best thing that there is to do is to begin working on removing the cloud cover so you can start getting a glimpse of the sun, so you can start seeing and feeling for what it is, so you can start seeing the self for what it is, feeling the frequency of the self behind the cloud cover. And the best fundamental practice I've ever come across that helped me tremendously is the process of alchemy, or the process of transmutation. Transmuting those distorted and fear-based dualistic frequencies and beliefs into the frequency of the soul, otherwise known as alchemy. So I want you to have a look at this next image I'm going to pull up here. And really it's just to provide a loose visual representation of what I'm talking about here. We can imagine that the truth of who we are isn't the physical body. It's actually the awareness that's surrounding the entire body, the light that's surrounding the entire body and permeating all of it. So the question is not how do we find something that we're already not. The question is how do we reveal to ourselves that that is who we really are, the light, so that our entire physical experience can then be seen through a clear lens, and our core frequency of our soul can be expressed through the physical avatar that we're playing, instead of our physical avatar expressing through the lens of the separate self and through the lens of the ego. And so in this example here, Think of all of these blocks and even all of the black calcification surrounding the body. Think of that as all of the beliefs and ideas that we've ever had and all of the programming we've received around believing that we are the separate self, and then all of the negative beliefs that come along from that root core belief of believing in separation. Because everything is mind and energy, how those beliefs show up in your energy field is like energy blocks or energy distortions that keep playing out. So all of these blocks could be representations of a negative belief that is being stored as an energy packet in the field that we can actually start working with and start dismantling and reprogramming it into the frequency of the soul and into the perspective of the higher mind. And what this does over time is this clears your field, clears your energy field of all of these blocks, all of these distortions and negative beliefs. And what's left is nothing but the frequency and the perspective of the soul. And that's where the idea of raising our frequency comes in from, is all of these negative beliefs and fear-based beliefs, distortions, they're currently the only thing that is weighing your frequency down. Raising your frequency isn't about becoming more, it's about clearing all of these anchors that are currently weighing your frequency down, so that naturally, like a cork in the ocean, it will float to the surface. Naturally, as you relieve more and more and transmute more and more of this frequency in your field and these beliefs, naturally, without you even having to think about it, your frequency rises. And as your frequency rises, awareness expands. And as your awareness expands, you become more and more aware of any more misqualified energies and frequencies that are maybe even deeper on a deeper level. So that previously, when you were burdened down and your frequency was lower, you had no conscious awareness of these things laying underneath the surface. But now that you're raising your frequency and expanding your awareness, more and more information is coming to you at a deeper and deeper level. So you start understanding exactly why and how you've always done what you've done. These patterns, these cycles become like epiphanies, because you see that a negative belief that was programmed into you, for example, when you were 10 years old and you were told to quieten down, be small, be quiet at a dinner table, for example, that was stored as a negative belief, and that has remained in your energy field for all of that time. And as we talked about, whatever's internal, whatever frequency is in your energy signature, that gets reflected out into your physical reality. So that frequency is in some way reflecting out into your experience, whether you're aware of it or not. It could be holding you back from being seen enough to go for a job promotion, being seen enough to launch a business, being seen enough to do anything that you want. So if you're feeling that internal resistance, there's a high probability there's something lurking beneath the surface of your energy field that we can actually use alchemy and the tools of alchemy to transmute into the soul perspective and frequency. And then the idea is, as enough of this distortion and these blocks start to transmute into the frequency and perspective of the soul, you start to get glimpses of who you really are. And as more and more glimpses come along, you start to realize that you're able to rest in the core of your being, the awareness of who you really are, more and more throughout the day. And then what you start finding is the mind, the physical mind, starts going silent. So you can just be present and aware. And that frequency starts saturating your physical experience, so that all of your behaviors and actions start just being extensions of and expressions of that core fundamental truth and understanding. And that's where we're trying to get to make that the permanent state in the physical experience. Remember, nothing can take away from what you really are, but the idea, at least in my perspective, is to experience that fully here and now. As I said, the best tool I've ever used, or the best practice I've ever used to do this, is the process of alchemy. And so I'm really interested to hear from you, because if something in this video today has resonated with you, it might be a very, very good indication. In fact, I would say it highly likely is a great indication that you've reached a point where you're ready to really start working through and alchemizing your energy field, so you can begin getting that glimpse of the truth of who you are, that stillness, that presence, and that silence, and that wholeness that you already are. So it's quickly becoming my mission to help people get those first few glimpses of who they really are, and then take that even to the next step further and start being able to rest and reside in that for more and more of the days until it becomes a permanent state, so you can fully embody here in the physical experience the truth, undistorted truth of who you really are. So to finish off here, what I'd love to do is to tell you about my brand new book that I've written all about the alchemical process. It's called The Way Home, Part 1, First Light. And this is all about guiding you home, guiding you back to the true self. And this Part 1, First Light, is all about using your own light as an alchemical tool to transmute those distorted energies and negative beliefs, so you can do that. What you'll find in this book is I've broken it down into a few different sections. In section 1, what you'll find is a theoretical understanding. Personally, I always love to really understand the mechanics and the science of what we're doing here. Something we can rely on, the mechanical understanding of what is transmuting the energy, what is the energy, and what's the result. So that's in section 1. Section 2 is filled with analogies and stories, because we do learn best through storytelling, because our brains are hardwired to learn the best through storytelling. And these examples are going to clearly show you areas that you can think of for yourself where you've had distorted or negative beliefs just appearing as cycles in your life, unwanted, negative, repeating patterns that you can't seem to break. And then section 3 is where it gets really the most exciting, because we're going to take everything we've learned in sections 1 and 2, and I'm going to provide you with 3 of the most powerful alchemy tools that I ever used to really start cleaning up your energy field and those negative beliefs, so you can get those glimpses and you can rest in the awareness of who you really are more and more and more until it becomes the permanent state. And so if you want to check out my new book, you can click the link in the description, and that's going to take you straight there. And if you did resonate with this and feel like there's some aha moments or epiphanies, I would love for you to become part of our community and hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more videos like this. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you in the next one.